Broadcasting live from the Albay PIO News Center, providing you the most exclusive news update from all over the province. This is News at 12.
News at 12.
In the local scene, fisheries professionals, academic institutions, government agencies, and industry stakeholders gathered in Albay for the opening of the first Bicol Fisheries Professionals Summit. The summit highlights the importance of innovation, collaboration, and sustainable development in strengthening the region's fisheries sector. Participants are sharing knowledge and best practices to help improve fisheries management and address the evolving needs of the industry. Organizers said the gathering also aims to build a stronger network of fisheries professionals committed to food security, sustainable resource management, and inclusive economic growth across the region. In other story, the Provincial Social Welfare and Development Office assessed the performance of its social welfare programs during its 2026 mid-year program review and evaluation workshop. The activity brought together city and municipal social welfare and development officers and partner people's organizations to review accomplishments, address implementation challenges, and identify ways to improve service delivery. Participants also discussed strategies to strengthen assistance for individuals, families, and communities across Albay. The workshop emphasized the importance of collaboration among government agencies, partner organizations, and stakeholders in delivering responsive social welfare programs. The activity reaffirmed the provincial government of Albay's commitment to improving public services through transparent, accountable, and people-centered social welfare programs. In other news, a proposed ordinance establishing the province-wide health system of Albay is one step closer to becoming a law after advancing to its third and final reading before the Sangguniang Panlalawigan. The measure seeks to make quality health care more accessible by strengthening health literacy, expanding preventive care, and improving access to essential medical services across the province. Once approved, the ordinance will establish an integrated healthcare network linking primary care providers with apex hospitals to ensure more coordinated and continuous health services. The initiative supports the provincial government of Albay's goal of providing accessible, inclusive, and quality health care for every Albayano. In the national scene, the Marcos administration is asking Congress to approve a proposed 7.2 trillion pesos national budget for 2027, which is 407 billion higher than the 6.793 trillion budget for 2026, according to the Department of Budget and Management. The DBM said the government has very limited funds available because a large portion of the budget is already reserved for mandatory expenses such as local government shares, interest payments on debt, and the implementation of newly passed laws. The agency also noted that rising debt payments, slower economic growth, and lower government revenues have made it more difficult to meet the spending and deficit targets, prompting officials to adjust the country's fiscal plans. The government attributed weaker economic performance to issues including the alleged flood control project anomalies and global uncertainties such as the conflict involving the United States, Israel, and Iran, which affected infrastructure spending and consumer confidence. The Philippines' national budget has steadily increased since reaching its first trillion pesos in 1999, climbing to a record of 6.33 trillion pesos in 2025, 6.793 trillion in 2026, and now a proposed 7.2 trillion for 2027 to support expanding government programs and services. In other story, the National Bureau of Investigation has filed a non-bailable qualified human trafficking complaint against former Anak Kalusugan Representative Mike Defensor, his wife Julie, and several company officials over the alleged sexual exploitation of women at Chicago KTV Bar and Blue Hotel in Pasig City. The complaint came after an NBI raid on April 21, which rescued more than 50 women following an investigation that began on April 7 based on information from a confidential informant about suspected illegal activities at the two establishments. The NBI said Mike and Julie Defensor served as chairperson and president of Cliff Point Development Corporation, which operates the property where the bar and hotel are located, while their children and other company officers were also included in the complaint because of their corporate positions. The Bureau also charged Wak Wak Golf and Country Club President Lawrence Tan, who was allegedly found inside the Chicago KTV bar during the raid, while NBI Director Melvin Mativa claimed Mike Defensor knew about the alleged trafficking activities and approved structural changes that helped conceal them. Defensor denied all the allegations, insisting the case is politically motivated and claiming it was filed in retaliation for his criticism of President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. and his involvement in allegations about public works kickbacks. In other news, the government plans to strengthen the Philippine ube industry by creating a steering committee and technical working group to meet the growing global demand for the country's popular purple yam. The proponent group will set clear standards for ube products, improve quality requirements, and coordinate rules among government agencies to make exports more competitive. The initiative follows a consultation led by the Department of Agriculture and the Department of Trade and Industry with 249 stakeholders, including farmers, processors, exporters, traders, and cooperatives. Government officials said better coordination and increased access to planting materials could raise production from 50 to 60 metric tons per operator to as much as 500 metric tons. Exporters said the country continues to face a shortage of raw ube despite rising demand in key markets, as the government aims to boost farmers' incomes and increase agricultural exports. And in the news outside the country, the United States launched new airstrikes on Iranian military sites after accusing Iran of attacking a cargo ship in the Strait of Hormuz, while Iran said the strikes violated their ceasefire and retaliated by targeting U.S. sites in the Gulf. Iran warned it would respond more forcefully if the United States attack again, as tensions in the Strait of Hormuz continued to threaten shipping despite ongoing peace talks. The conflict also spread to Lebanon, where Hezbollah rejected a U.S.-backed peace deal with Israel, calling it unfair and urging full implementation of the U.S.-Iran ceasefire. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu defended the agreement, said troops would remain in southern Lebanon until Hezbollah was disarmed, while Israel continued airstrike in the area. Iran also reported inflation had risen to 88.6%, while analysts said both sides are still likely to continue negotiations despite the renewed tensions. In other story, the death toll from Venezuela's twin earthquakes climbed to 1,430 on Saturday as rescue teams continued searching for survivors, while the United Nations warned that up to 6.76 million people would need emergency shelter, clean water, health care, and other basic services. Rescuers and residents worked through the rubble in the hardest hit areas where a baby was pulled alive from the debris 32 hours after the powerful quakes, but frustration grew over delays and permit requirements that volunteers said slowed rescue efforts. Interim leader Delcy Rodriguez thanked countries sending aid and said the United States had begun delivering assistance, with military aircraft, rescue teams, and trained search dogs joining emergency crews from 21 nations. The disaster struck a country already struggling with years of economic hardship and political instability, leaving hospitals and public services under pressure as officials estimated billions of dollars in damage and confirmed that victims included both Venezuelans and foreign nationals. And finally, in the news outside the country, with reference to the Philippines, despite recent crackdowns on scam centers along the Thai-Myanmar border since 2024, human trafficking and forced criminal work continue, with thousands of people still trapped in compounds controlled by armed groups in Myanmar's Mewadi area, including at least 18 Filipinos. Around 5,300 victims of different nationalities, including Filipinos, are reportedly held in at least 4 major scam compounds, where they are forced to carry out online fraud, while many others are scattered across nearby facilities under various militia-controlled zones. Reports said many Filipino victims were recruited in the Philippines through social media and false job offers before being moved through multiple countries and eventually taken into guarded compounds in Myanmar. Survivors said Filipinos and other workers are forced to run online scams such as fake investment and romance schemes targeting victims abroad, and those who fail to meet the strict quotas are allegedly punished with abuse and harsh conditions. Human trafficking advocates and families are calling for urgent rescue efforts for Filipino victims and others still held, as more than 2,000 Filipinos have already been repatriated from similar scam operations in Myanmar and Cambodia since 2025. And that's the news at 12, June 29, 2026. We'll be back tomorrow for more news updates. And thanks to our news writers, LJ Lorejo and Naomi Ruth Hernandez. And on the technical side, Chad Bobis. And our Provincial Information Office, OIC, Marty Gonzalez. And under the supervision of our Governor, Noel E. Rusal, I am Greg Hallare. Thank you for subscribing. Albay in my heart.